probably around 2003. And it's been a running kind of an annoyance for certain people, but, we've gotten rather serious about it. And then, of course, I think maybe 6 or 8 months ago, I told everybody, now be careful, watch out for it, because this fall, pies are going to go viral. And sure enough, then we get up with the, I don't know if you've seen it, but on YouTube, there's this little clip of Obama, and he talks about pies like 22 times in a single 2 minutes or whatever, and it went viral. There were, hundreds of thousands of people watching this YouTube video thing. And everybody looks at us and says, how'd you know about that? And did we cause it? And no, we did not cause it. We were ahead of the wave, and we're riding on the crest of it, but we didn't bring the wave with us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So there's, linguistics can be very, very, very powerful, much more powerful than most people would give credence to. Everything from being able to use rhythmic patterns of speech, rhetoric, and so on to actually compel crowds and stuff to do things. The master of the mob, that sort of thing. All the way down to bringing you enlightenment when you examine language down at its core level and you get into archetypes and then symbology. You can bust open your paradigms and gain new views.
Very true.
That is so well put. And when you were talking about legal language not changing, it made me think of the control freaks' language does not change. I mean,
Correct.
If you look back in history to what?
The same concepts, same archetypes,
and
virtually
almost
the same expression.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how is that, huh? Because they're following the same
Script.
pattern, the same scripts?
Because they've been told actually what to say and so on. And you'll notice that, I mean, I don't want to bring up competitors or any of that, but back on, like, I think sometime in July or whenever, I did a coast-to-coast show, and then shortly after that I was on Jeff Rince's radio, and both times I mentioned that we were describing the period of time from October 7th onward as being epic. Originally, the word that came back from our model space was monumental. Now, monumental is a funny word because for the current generations, it has very little emotional impact. It has a lot of emotional duration, but not much in the way of intensity. It's monumental. Well, we see monuments around all the time. However, when people put up monuments, it's to try and express a huge amount of feeling that they've got and get it out of their system about something that happened long ago. So the current time we're in, for those of us living in it, it's not monumental. But in the future, they will look back on the period of time we're in right now and decide that this is monumental, and will build, statues and stuff to it and intend to memorialize it at a huge way within the general population base. For us living through it, though, the other side, the active, more instant and intense version of monumental is encapsulated in the word epic. So look in the future, in the next 4 or 5, 6 months here, you're going to see the word epic appearing everywhere. It'll get to the point where it'll just nauseate you, but you're right on the beginning cusp of that. And we're seeing some of those archetypes expressed in, for instance, the Biden speech that he gave here in Washington State that has everybody whipped up, where he alluded to things that are going to happen in early 2009. He uses words like Aegean stables, gird your loins, all kinds of words that are specifically, and all kinds of phrases, they're specifically going to Homeric and other epic stories. And it's an archetype of epic appearing, and he's talking about archetypical structures without betraying that he's actually doing that, simply by using the particular words that he chooses. But the impression is coming across. And we were prescient on that by easily a year and a half.
That's fascinating. Yeah, and his talk did draw a lot of attention.
It certainly did.
And
yeah.
as I understand, he was just talking to not a public venue, but it
was a private fundraiser.
Fundraiser,
correct.
Right?
And these were, as has been described to me, these were either Democratic Party apparatchiks within Washington State, and/or were very heavy contributors. So it was not supposed to be public.
Right.
So it was a fairly large gaffe. And isn't it curious how universe provides us just what we want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're not, the powers that be are not quite as powerful as they think they are. And actually, I refer to them as clever as opposed to smart. And there's a big difference.
Yes. So what did your model space get from that?
We don't quite work that way. We wouldn't use using his words now is the reconciliation stage. That's where we see how our word epic is starting to play out, and these are the various examples that we get. And so now, for instance, within the context of epic, I have a subset in there that it is defined as epic words from the powers that be, and I've got a whole long list of new words that I know that they will use to get that concept across. You know, gird your loins, cleaning the Aegean sables, and all these other archetypical words for Homeric kind of references. So that was in a reconciliation period that we talked about earlier. In the beginning, though, when we first started seeing epic, excuse me, it was only to reconcile the appearance of monumental, because monumental just doesn't get it across. But epic really does. If you think you're about to go on an epic journey, and your Homeric vessel is the whole planet, and everybody in the crew is all the people on the planet, that kind of gives you an idea that we're really heading into something that is beyond our understanding and beyond any human experience to date.
So, do you think there's an awareness of that?
At what level?
At a more...
no, I mean within the powers that be, or within the populace, or
yes, within the powers that be. Is that something they're planning at all?
They think they're planning it all, right? They think they have control over circumstances. One of their major flaws is that they actually think they can control circumstance, and that they're smart enough to overcome the way universe works. Their understanding is extremely limited, and will always be extremely focused, because at their core, the powers that be are perhaps 10 or 12 or 13,000 individuals that do not share the genetic predisposition of most humans on the planet. They are quite actually not of this world at a fundamental level, and their perceptions are thus tainted with their view of a much more mechanistic universe, as opposed to a much more mysterious universe. And so they do think that they are in control, and that they're planning it all. And it really kind of bugs them when stuff happens.
Oh, that is fabulous. That is, on many levels, come way down to a closed mind that doesn't see what is happening and what people really want, and just want to put their plan across.
Correct.
So,
magnified. Even beyond that, they don't consider humans to be people. And
yes.
People is an interesting word, because it means, at its fundamental core, if you follow the etymology all the way back, people means actually like me. Okay, so anybody I consider to be like me is people. If you have a broad enough definition, then birds are people, dogs are people, fishes are people, plants are people, etc., right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a narrow enough idea of dividing people and non-people, then you get into the area, those are non-people, just, herd them into that box and kill them all. Or sacrifice them for this, or work them to death for that, and so on. And that's where the nature of evil arises, is the ability to exploit life and without the emotional baggage that it brings. Now, I'm not saying they don't have karma, because karma is a different concept. It's not this vague, if you do this, bad things will happen to you concept. Karma actually references these things called karmans, which is a microfine particle, which gets us into a whole other realm of thought. But if we just stop for a second and assume that what I'm going to tell you is true, you don't have to believe it to be true or anything, just assume for a minute that it is. But my viewpoint is that 22 trillion times a second, a pulse comes out of the middle of the universe, which goes instantly, because it travels beyond the nature of time, into the middle of every galaxy, and from the middle of every galaxy goes to the middle of every sun, and from every sun it goes to the middle of every planet, from every middle of every planet, which are basically yin factories, it jumps up into all the yang creatures that are on the surface of the planet. So we all share in this micro pulse at 22 trillion times a second. And basically that's the coordinating pulse of all of the universe. Now, the human brain, the conscious part of the brain, probably only works for most people at 60 cycles or less, and usually about 30 to 40 frames per second, if you will, or less. So the 22 trillion times a second pulse, with the energy of the universe pulsing out as energy, tricks us at our 40 frames per second mind into thinking universe is solid. And thus, really, truly, universe is not solid. Universe does not exist as we've been told by academic science. If you have an academic science viewpoint of hard atoms as rigid little rocks whizzing around in microspace, then you get an entirely different concept that from that point on, as to how universe works, what karma is, etc., and so on. In fact, and you can even disbelieve in karma at that level. But if you see universes happening at this 22 trillion times a second beyond my ability to perceive, then it is easy to construct a mental view where you understand that karmans are microfine matter that's working at a level of maybe 50,000 frames per second, and I can only perceive at 40,000 or 40 frames per second, so I'll never see the karma. Doesn't mean I won't feel its effect, though. Makes sense.
That is, what a magnificent explanation.
That is fascinating.
Oh.
And with that, we shall take a break. You're listening to Clif from halfpasthuman.com on Beyond the Ordinary. We'll be back right after this.
Hey, Beyond the Ordinary with Clif. And we'll get what happened mail if we don't give some examples, so please do.
Okay. Well, when I first started off, we were able to get a prediction on an event that would change life for everybody on the planet. We posted it on July 12th on George Ure's Urban Survival site. That's where I put out all my free information, public announcements, that kind of thing, and at urbansurvival.com. And we posted it on July 12th of 2001 saying, well, within 85 or 90 days, there's going to be an event. We think it'll happen mostly in the next 15 to 20 days, and it'll change the way we do things. It'll involve a military accident, and it'll be focused on the money center of the planet. Well, it was obviously predictive of the 9/11 attacks, but because I had my numbers wrong, or reversed, actually, we thought it would be earlier, and if I just simply reversed the numbers, we would have known it would have been in the last 15 days of that particular period, which would have brought us up to September 11th. We've predicted that. We came up with the attack on the house about the anthrax. We got that under an attack, or under a archetype of attack on a house or assemblage. We got a lot of the archetypes that were surrounding the DC sniper. We've got the archetypes for the space shuttle disaster, but we thought it would be maritime because, of course, Columbia is associated with an ocean, Columbia, gem of the ocean. And so we were all focused on maritime disaster, but we had a lot of the words that actually ended up describing what occurred with the space shuttle. We got things like the Northeast power outage. We had that posted 3 weeks early, and that was a really good hit. A lot of these are over at George Ure's site. You can track down our past record there because he's kept them up for years. And they're unaltered, and you can see clearly what day they were posted and so on. And so we've got that. We're getting really good at earthquakes. We had some indications about the Sumatran tsunami. We had some indications, for instance, 300,000 people missing or dead. A whole nation knocked back to a previous age, turned into Stone Age, that kind of thing. And we've recently gotten good enough that we were able to, for instance, extract some of the linguistics about the China quake. And that was a pretty good one because, for us,